You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. Hope y'all are having a good Friday lunch edition here on Braves Country today. And we are on YouTube on Braves Country Radio, and we're starting to do these on TikTok as well on Braves Country X. And we're going to go over the series upcoming with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I can't share what I can share on YouTube. So if you're over on TikTok, just realize we're sharing the stuff on the screen, but I can't do the same. Trying to figure out a way to be able to share all this stuff, and I think the more stuff that we do over here on the TikTok channel, that things are going to open up. Good to see you, Nathaniel Brooks, over in our YouTube chat. And a couple things want to go over real quick, just in case you missed the post game last night. The Braves won a big game last night, 5-4. That's number one. And the walk-off hit by Drake Baldwin was a big one. I mean, you got to love everything as the when you look at the big picture here on this, the Braves go out and they win a game that probably could have went a number of different ways that were honestly, it could have went a lot worse. And those trying to invite to jump on TikTok realize we're doing this on radio and on YouTube, so I can't really have one person come in on one outlet and talk because no one's going to know what in the world you're talking about on the radio stations and on our YouTube feed. But anyways, Back to the rest of the story. When we got the blown save by Raisel Iglesias, and once again, I don't think this is panic button time with Iglesias. Closers go out and they have bad outings, I should say. And he had a hanging slider, and look, he's looked pretty darn good this year. The one thing I will say is that last year we got spoiled because he was absolutely positively lights out. And he was in a groove. And when closers get in those types of grooves, you get a little spoiled, and you're shocked when they blow a save here and there because you just can't believe that it's possible. And so the first thing someone says is, oh, he's done. He's cooked. We got to get a new closer. We got to do this. We got to do that. None of that's true. If you were going to panic, you would have panicked when Chris Sale looked like hell the first couple of weeks in the Major League Baseball season. He's starting to come into form. Schwellenbach is starting to come into form. You got to love all of that. You got to love the fact that not only on top of that, with Schwellenbach coming into form last night, and I thought he pitched pretty well. One of his better starts. You had Chris Sale, who last few starts out has pitched absolutely outstanding. He goes on Sunday, by the way, in this series. And then on top of that, you're going to have a situation where the Braves are coming into this series against Pittsburgh. We'll get more into it in a second. But realize this is a dicey situation because our two weakest links in our pitching staff right now are pitching in this series, the first two games. You got Bryce Elder going tonight, and then tomorrow you have A.J. Smith-Shawver. And though both have pitched well in the last couple of starts, there is something to be said for the fact that there's inconsistency in Elder and just flat-out inexperience in A.J. Smith-Shawver. So you don't really know what you're going to get. You hope for the best. But when it's all said and done, you're going into a series, and though Pittsburgh is not playing good baseball, they just fired their manager. And I talked about this last night, but That concerns the hell out of me, because usually when a team fires their manager, the first couple of games that they come off of that, they usually play pretty well, because there's like a rejuvenation. Even if it's not a brand new guy being brought in, there is a rejuvenation. And so we're probably going to get Pittsburgh's best effort these next few games. And so what you're hoping is that Elder goes out and pitches the way he has recently and gets you through 5 innings of, we'll say, 2-run ball. I'm not expecting a quality start. I'm not expecting 6 innings, but you would love 6 innings and 2-run ball. But I would take 5 and 2 over 6 and 3. The Drake hit last night was great. Nobody's talking about that throw that he made. And he's been pretty good behind the plate. He's been very impressive. In the last year, it's leaps and bounds. Last year when he was in the minor leagues, all we heard about at the start of the season was that this kid could hit, but he still had a lot of work to do behind the plate. And the maturation process of him being behind the plate has been phenomenal. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds for Drake. He's still a young kid, and I love you now understand why the Braves were willing to give up d'Arnaud, because A, it was going to save them money, but B, everything being equal, you'd rather have a younger guy as in the fold of the duo behind home plate. And he's a left-handed bat. And though d'Arnaud is missed in the clubhouse, he was showing signs of age, and there's nothing you could do about it as far as even if you wanted to move on, you want to say, well, we can make Travis d'Arnaud work with Baldwin. You couldn't really do that because you locked yourself into a 6-year deal with Sean Murphy a couple of years ago. So you have to deal with that. And he didn't have a great year last year, so it made it impossible to even think about trading Sean Murphy. And I don't think they had any interest in trading him to begin with, but if you're thinking along that process, that's where the Braves are at. And we just saw a team with the Reds that carried 3 catchers on their roster, but that's very rare. And also remember, Austin Wynns can play outfield. So you don't want 3 catchers on your roster that can only catch, and that's essentially where you're at now. Travis d'Arnaud years and years ago played outfield, but he can't do it anymore. Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin are not outfielders. See, the idea to have 3 catchers is kind of goofy, to be honest with you. So you understand why they did what they did, but the Braves, just to put a cap on that Cincinnati series, they take 3 of 4. The Drake walk-off is going to be what everybody comes away with. But once again, his defense behind the plate was extremely, extremely impressive. And then what about Scott Blewett, Scotty B, as I like to call him? Because I'm not going to sit there and make fun of one of our players and call him Blewett. You know, Bummer's a little different because it's a little more of a much more common of a last name. But Scotty B, to me, his 2 innings of shutout ball with the ghost runner on. He didn't just come in and shut down the Reds in the 6th and 7th inning. He did this both in extra innings where they were given, first of all, one of the innings, the ghost runner was Ellie De La Cruz, and we know he could fly. So Scotty B should just be praised, and let's not forget the throw that Matt Olson made over to third. On the attempt to move the runner over, he charged the ball, spun and fired an absolute gem to third to get the runner. And so it was, all in all, when it's all said and done, it was an incredible defensive performance. And the Braves did score 5 runs. It's not like that the offense didn't do anything. You would like to see a little more consistency from the offense during the first 9, especially the difference between this Braves team and others Braves team that I've seen so far is we'll just take 2023 as an example where they broke so many records offensively. And that was just a dream season offensively. But we rarely jump out to the early lead. And I'm talking about putting a crooked number on the board. I'm not talking about scratching out a run in the first 3 innings. We're rarely getting out to that 2, 3, even 4-run lead. So there's been a lot of pressure put on the bullpen. A lot of pressure put on the bullpen. But Scott Blewett, Scotty B, goes out and throws 2 great innings. This is after Iglesias had blown the save, and then the Braves scratch back in the bottom of the 9th and score 2. Big hit by Harris again. You know, I did want to bring something up. They were, the other day, I guess the article actually dropped yesterday morning. Maybe it was overnight. But regardless, they were absolutely torching Michael Harris II on his recent, on basically saying that his 8-year, $72 million deal has been a huge disappointment. And I'm not going to argue that it hasn't been. But it's really odd that he goes out and drops that article when Michael Harris, counting last night, over his last 19 games, he's batting .273. He's got 5 doubles, 16 RBI, and 6 runs scored with 5 stolen bases. So it's not like he's been chopped liver offensively. And if you go back and dive into the numbers, we don't have time to do it today, but he's been much more productive when he's been in that middle to bottom part of the lineup. When they put him up to the top, and I know I talk about this all the time, he's not a leadoff hitter, and he puts undue pressure on himself at the top of the lineup, and I don't think it's fair. They need to knock it off. If you want to give Verdugo, let's say if you want to give Verdugo the night off tonight, put Eli White at the top. Don't mess with Michael Harris because he's going to come into his zone just like we saw last season. We're assuming Acuna is going to be back in the next few weeks. And at that point, we know Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to go slotted right into the leadoff position. There's no reason to mess with Michael. One of the things he likes to do, and I think this is just a great sign for a young player, because you don't hear a lot of young players talk about this, because normally, even if they're doing it, they don't tend to reveal that they're doing it. But he constantly talks about how early in the game, he goes to the guys like, we'll just take Verdugo, for example, who's leading off. He'll go to him and say, what are you seeing? Because they're both left-handed hitters. And he gets an opportunity to pick his brain, a veteran, and say, this is how he's pitching me, this is what I'm seeing, this is the release that I'm seeing. And he can relate to that because it's 2 left-handed guys out there, 2 left-handed bats. I'm sure he does it to a degree with Olsen, but the difference between Olsen and Verdugo is Olsen's up there, man. When he's up there, he's shooting for the downs. Whereas Verdugo's trying to move the line, and that's exactly what Harris is trying to do. Not saying either one of them don't have any power, but their role and Olsen's role are 1,000% difference. And then, of course, when he goes to Ozzie, Ozzie says, I don't know, man. I saw it the first pitch I saw. All right. Strider is supposed to throw a bullpen session tomorrow. And after that, they're going to make a decision whether or not he's going to have a rehab start. We probably won't get the indication tomorrow. It's most likely that we'll hear about it on Sunday or Monday. So hopefully by the time we do the next series preview, which will be Monday for the Washington series, as the Braves will come back home after a 3-game series in Pittsburgh, we'll get an indication on whether or not he has to do a rehab assignment. If he does have to do a rehab assignment, that would probably happen early next week. And so then when you look at the calendar and you see if he does, then he would probably come back into the fold most likely during the San Diego series, May 23rd to the 25th. If it's later in the week, then he's going to come in and pitch against Philadelphia. I would honestly prefer to see him try to just work out some kinks against Washington at home, little less pressure and a less dynamic offense that he's going to go up against. Because if you wait until the series against San Diego or the series against Philadelphia, you're talking about two much more dynamic offenses than what you're going to face at home against Washington. And so looking at the game, the series for the Pirates series that begins tonight, remember it's an early first pitch, y'all. It's a 6:40 first pitch. So we'll come on the air on YouTube at about 6 p.m. It's Elder versus Bailey Falter, and then Heaney versus A.J. Smith-Shawver. And then after that, you're going to have the matchup of, on Sunday, it'll be Chris Sale versus Malinsky. We have a huge advantage in that one. He's coming in 1-3 with the 6.16 ERA. And we know that we've seen Sale play very well recently. And his last 3 to 4 starts have been much better than the beginning of the season. So I would expect him to go out and shove on Sunday. The A.J. Smith-Shawver versus Heaney, that's a tough one. Heaney has pitched pretty well. He's going to come into you can't pay attention to the record because Pittsburgh hasn't been scoring a lot of runs and their bullpen has been falling apart. But you have to look at the actual pitching matchup. That's a 4.05 first pitch on Saturday, by the way. Heaney comes in with a 3.18 ERA. Now, Bailey Falter, we have seen him a ton because, remember, he started off with the Philadelphia Phillies. But Bailey Falter comes into tonight, 1-3 with the 5.06 ERA. He's going up against Elder. Elder has looked much better recently. That is not an understatement at all. He has been, to me, a guy who's pitched well, but let's not all of a sudden say that he's back to the 2023 All-Star Bryce Elder. But I think what he's learning how to do is that if he's not getting the swing and misses, which he's not really a strikeout pitcher, if he's not getting the swing and misses, he's not placing his sinker, his slider has been so much better the last 3 starts that we've seen Bryce Elder here. Now, if you want to look at the starter for tonight, Bailey Falter, his last outing, he got pummeled, but he was in L.A. facing the Dodgers. He went 4 innings, 5 earned runs. April 22nd, at the Angels, 4 innings, 3 earned runs. Excuse me, he did have a start since that Dodger series, and that was against San Diego, and he actually pitched pretty well. That's against the Padres, too. That was on May 3rd. He went 7 innings, 1 earned run, and that was a solo shot. 6 strikeouts. The one that jumps out at me with the Dodgers is he didn't have many strikeouts, not a lot of swing and misses, and they were putting the bat on the ball. But all in all, Falter has had a couple pop-up really good starts. Back on April 16th against Washington, 7 innings, shutout ball. The other starts, he tends to give up the crooked numbers. He's given up 7, 3, 3, 5. And then, of course, the 2 outliers are at home against Washington and at home against San Diego. What I'm seeing is the biggest trend there outside of the Yankee outing where and I was actually watching that game. He got hit pretty hard early, and it just seemed like that they left him out there to take one for the team, so to speak. But he's pitched much better at home than he has on the road this year. And so he's at home. So what are we going to get? Bailey Falter, we've usually had pretty good success against him. But like I said, it's not a given that he's going to go up there and just throw a bunch of tomato cans up there and the Braves are going to wail away. Plus, the other thing that's been an underlying factor for the Braves for the last few years is during the Brian Snitker era, 2 things have been very true about the Braves coming out flat. A, the middle of the week day game, and B, usually the first game of a road series. And I know this is just a 3-game series, but the first game of a road series, the offense is usually pretty flat. They come in, Now, you can attribute that to a million things. I'm not putting that on Snicker. I'm just saying that since he's been around, you see this pretty regularly. So don't be surprised if Bailey Falter, first time, maybe even second time through the lineup, looks like Cy Young, and then the Braves make their adjustments and go at him. I'm hoping we don't get the early type of Brave stuff where you see them give up base hits on the starting pitcher end, fall behind a little bit on the scoreboard, and then they're just out there just swinging away, and it's almost like they can't wait to get back to the hotel and get to sleep. You're going to come into today where the Braves are – they're coming into tonight, and look, I know it was disappointing the other day when we were a game under 500 and we lost. It set us back again. But once again, we're a game under 500, third of the National League East. We'll get into the standings here in a second. But all in all, 18-19 after that horrific start of 0-7. I don't hate any of that. The fact that we've played that well, and I get it, the schedule has been much kinder to us in the last few weeks. But we had a gauntlet that we went through to start off the first 2 weeks of the season, where we played at San Diego, at the Dodgers, and then when we did come home, one of the games against the Marlins gets rained out, which you hate that. So we split that series. We couldn't win it. And then we took care of the Phillies best 2 out of 3. But that is a gauntlet to start your season on, where you don't have any of the lower-end guys sprinkled in. Now's where it's starting to even up a little bit. We took 3 or 4 from the Reds, and though the Reds are playing around 500 ball, their roster is not one that's going to blow you away. Now we have 3 at Pittsburgh, and then after that, 4 at home against Washington, and then we go out for a 6-game road trip to Boston and Washington before we come home for just a 3-game homestand. Just like this 3-game road series, we come in with a 3-game homestand to face San Diego. And honestly, this part of the schedule is where we need to take advantage. We need to build momentum, get some wins, because the tail end of this month, you're going to have 3 at Philly. You go in and then 3 at home against first 3 at home against San Diego, then 3 at Philly, then 3 at home against Boston. And as you roll in to next month, you're going to have 3 more at home against Arizona. That's a pretty tough slate before we go back out on the road, which is the second to last West Coast trip that we have. 3 at San Francisco, and then we move back towards the east and go to Milwaukee. So we don't have one good thing about this. We no longer have the rest of the season. We don't have that 6-game chunk where we are on the West Coast starting games at 9, 10 o'clock at night. We have 3 more in San Francisco, and then in July, just before the All-Star break, we have 3 at the Athletics, formerly of Oakland. Now they play in Sacramento. So looking at the way the schedule is going to unfold, and I like the Braves' chances to put up a good one tonight, just as long as the offense isn't giving it bats away. Go up there, come prepared, and take good approaches. Saturday's game is the most concerning to me of the entire series, because even though A.J. Smith-Shawver's pitched very, 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 very well, Heaney is their best pitcher in this series. And then Sunday feels like you better win game, meaning you don't leave a game when you're going up against Molotsky, the 6+ ERA. You don't leave that W on the table when you have Chris Sale going. And, of course, that is Mother's Day. We will be doing the Mother's Day cast, and we will have every game this year. The only one it looks like that we're going to miss is the series just before the All-Star game. That's when I'm moving to North Carolina, and so we're going to dip away for a few days going into the All-Star game, and then those of y'all who are going to the All-Star game festivities, I'll see you that weekend for should be a really fun weekend. Looking forward to that. We're going to meet up somewhere on that Sunday ball game. It's a mid-afternoon. I think it's a 2:00 afternoon. We're going to meet up somewhere and try to catch at least the last half, if not the very beginning. My goal is to get there for the very beginning of the Cardinals-Braves game, which takes us into the All-Star break. Let's see if I have anything else left here on these news and notes. Standings real quick. Let me go ahead and hit that because I know that a lot of folks get into the grind of not just the season, but your everyday work and family life. You don't have time to look at the standings. Right now, we're sitting 5.5 games back on New York. So last time that we did this, we have gained a little bit of ground. We were 6.5 the last time we took a look at this. We're 4 games behind Philadelphia. Philadelphia went out there and took care of the Rays again, and they've won 8 of their last 10. The Mets have won 5 of their last 10 as their schedule's starting to get a little more difficult, and the Braves have won 6 of their last 10. So right now, I'll take it, considering that terrible start. You just think about that 0-7 start. Had we just won 2 of those games, we would be sitting 3.5 behind the Mets and 2 behind the Phillies. Just 2 of this. We just went 2-5. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year. One of the first things that I said was, man, I really wish to hell if we could just get 2 wins on this series because it's going to be so tough coming out of the spring training going right into this. 3-4 would have been phenomenal, and 4-3 would have been very unrealistic. But to go 0-7 just really threw you for a loop. So that's where we're at in the division standings as far as the wild card standings. And it's never too early to look at the wild card standings when you start off 0-7. The Braves right now in the wild card standings are 4 games behind Philly, once again, who has, excuse me, the final wild card spot. So we've lost a little ground there, but San Diego and San Francisco, who have the next 2 spots over Philadelphia in the wild card spot, we're only 5.5 behind them. And so we've stayed right there. The teams that are in front of us that we're looking at, we're tied with Cincinnati. And then Milwaukee's a half game in front. St. Louis is a half game in front. And Arizona is a game and a half in front of us. So we're right there with all of them. We just continue to play good baseball. We'll find our way back up there. And sooner than later, I think the Braves will be right there in the mix for the final wild card spot, and maybe even a little higher as we head towards the All-Star break. So that's where you have that. And as far as run differential, we have the worst run differential in the league. It's because of our offense. But we are, in the very beginning of the season, our pitching was terrible, but it's really picked up. We have a -1 differential. Everyone in front of us has a huge run differential in the positive. The Braves pitching has picked up. It's been very good recently. And I believe that the starting pitching is only going to get better. You got Strider hopefully coming back within the next week or so. You're going to have some decisions to make with what you want to do with like an A.J. Smith-Shawver. Do you want to slide Grant Holmes into the bullpen eventually? They'll probably wait a little while before they do that. And Craig Kimbrell is eventually going to come up. They've been really quiet about that, but he should be making his way up for the big club because he was pitching pretty well. I haven't checked his stats in a few days. I want to double check real quick, make sure that he hasn't getting rocked. But they've been extremely quiet about him recently. Let me see if we got anything on him. See. There's been nothing of it's all just speculation. So everybody wants to know what's going on with Kimbrel. Honestly, here we go. 2 nights ago, Kimbrel earned his first win and pitched well once again. Now, one thing to be said about Kimbrel, he is 36 years old. So when he does come up, don't expect the moon and stars. He just had a birthday. Don't expect the moon and the stars, but looking at it right now, Kimbrel should be somewhere getting very, very close. And remember, he's got 440 saves all time. So in a pinch, not just with a struggle, but if you just want to give Iglesias the night off, you can go in there and send Kimbrel in. He's got plenty of experience there, obviously. So hopefully he will be doing something in the near future. You don't expect to see him in this Pittsburgh series because they're traveling, but you never know. But looking at it right now, this was back on May 7th. He'd gone 8 2/3, 2.08 ERA. 3 hits allowed in those 8 2/3 with 10 strikeouts at a .92 whip. And his fastball is averaging around 94, 95 miles an hour. So if not now, when? I'm thinking more likely it would come in the homestand against Washington. But I also feel like there's a game being played with the Braves of they're trying to get to that next off day on May 19th. And if they believe that they can get through it and then bring up Kimbrel, that's a possibility. Because what they keep waiting on is that 1 or 2 games back-to-back, and it could happen when you have an Elder and a Shawver pitching back-to-back. But those couple of games go back-to-back where it just wears the hell out of your bullpen and there's no day off in sight. With that being said, the one thing that I wanted to bring up, this team needs a laugher or two in the next week or so. Meaning we need a couple of games where the offense wakes up and makes it so easy on the bullpen that they don't have to worry about these tight games. You look at Sunday, it was 4-3. Monday, 4-0. It never felt like the game was in hand. Even in the ninth inning, if you remember, they got Iglesias up and warming up, even though they won 4-0. And then in the second game of the series, they win in extra innings 2-1. The third game of the series, they lose a tight one 4-3. And then last night in extra innings, this time they go 11, they win by a run. But the point is, they're putting a lot of innings on this bullpen, even though your starters are going deep into the game. So we need a laugher. We need at least one laugher this weekend, hopefully on the positive side, but a game where the Braves just blow out the opponent so you can reset your bullpen. And you'd like to see one in the Washington series when you got 4 at home against Washington. You'd like to see at least one laugher. I'm talking about 5-6 run win where you're never even thinking about getting Iglesias up, or you're never even think about getting some of the other back end guys up, so you can just give them days off. All right, that's going to about do it for us. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us on a Friday. Remember, once again, early game, 6:40. So if you're not normally home in time, just go ahead and sneak that earbud in as you're hiding in your cubicle and pretending like you're typing away. But 6:40 first pitch, and we'll come on the air about 6 o'clock to get you ready pregame. Braves, Pirates, 3-game set, 6:40, 4:05 on Saturday, and 1:35 on Sunday. All right, y'all, let's see if there's any questions over here in the chat here on YouTube. Let's see. I don't really see any comments. I think y'all are just chatting away like y'all usually do, talking about life. All right, y'all have a great one. Appreciate everyone tuning in And on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're over on TikTok, please subscribe. We're going to be doing these very often. And assuming that the game ends, that we don't have a long rain delay or something like that, that the game ends at a decent time, we are doing a post-game show tonight. We will not be doing one on Saturday. And we're playing it by ear on Mother's Day because it's Mother's Day. Y'all have a good one.